Hello, everybody. Dr. Jesse Ritter here, and today I want to talk about the whole concept of in dentistry. People, patients, clients, they believe that whenever we do dentistry, we absolutely have to hack down teeth all the time, and this is something that comes up a lot. And I think it's one of those things with fear, where people. This is one of the things that people fear greatly, and I touched on this a little bit in my last video. But I just want to get into a little bit more kind of detail with, what modern dentistry can offer as far as conservation of tooth structure goes. And hopefully I can get to the end of this 5 or 7 minute video without it starting to pour, because there's a huge thunderstorm coming. You guys might hear some thunder and see some lightning here while I'm recording. But as materials have advanced in dentistry, and aesthetic porcelain materials in particular have gotten so strong. So for many years there was just a couple porcelains on the market, but the first ever porcelain was a powder liquid porcelain that was feldspathic porcelain, and that porcelain is still used today in different forms over metal foundations of crowns, but it's also still used to make veneers and things like that. But it's a very weak porcelain. It's very you're able to artistically create beautiful restorations with it. It's just that it's a little bit weak, and so patients that have bruxism, or they generate a lot of force or friction on the restorations, it's usually just not the greatest choice. But it's evolved, and it's evolved to stronger forms of that sort of feldspathic based porcelain. You have lucite reinforced ceramics, and then you have Emax is kind of the. When Emax came onto the scene, I don't know exactly what year it was. It's been around for a while, but Emax is a porcelain that's made by Ivoclar Vivident, and this porcelain, I use it almost exclusively. It is incredibly strong. It can be bonded to tooth structure, and it is beautiful. And it's made in a variety of translucencies and all the shades you could possibly want. And so what it's allowed in modern dentistry, it's allowed us to be so incredibly conservative with restoration, with the thickness of the porcelain when we're doing veneers, crowns, whatever it is, that we a lot of times barely have to do anything more than just kind of roughen the tooth up. There was a company, I think it was in the 90s and into the 2000s, where it was called you've kind of I think most people have heard of the term Lumineers. And Lumineers were made of Serenate porcelain, and they were very popular. They marketed a lot, and people knew kind of, they brought veneers onto the scene and made veneers more popular and more known in sort of pop culture. But the material is weak. It was weak. It still is weak. They're still done today, and some dentists actually still use Serenate porcelain and still do Lumineers. But Emax is just so much of a better material. Now, there is another material that's come on in just the past couple of years from the standpoint of being more aesthetic. It's always been very strong, and that's zirconia. Zirconia is the hardest, strongest porcelain in dentistry. It's actually, technically, it's a metal. That's a whole other conversation. But it's white. It's white. It's tooth colored in its kind of basic form, and so it's kind of referred to as a porcelain. But it's incredibly strong. It's incredibly thin, and it's getting better as the technology advances. As they test out different formulations of it, it's getting more aesthetic, more translucent. And that's really the name of the game. With porcelain, it's got to be translucent for it to look natural. And if you have a material that you can use it where it's very translucent, or it has like a medium opacity and then it has a higher opacity material, that's really kind of the best thing you can ask for, because in a situation where you need to really brighten up a tooth significantly, but you want to be as conservative as possible, you need something to be opaque to block out that underlying tooth shade. So in the past, when you were doing, the Material Empress, which was kind of in the middle between the powder and liquid feldspathic porcelains and Emax. Empress was popular for a really long time, and actually it's still a pretty popular ceramic. It's a good ceramic. One issue with it is that it is so translucent, and so if you need to really brighten somebody's teeth up, it's difficult to do with that material, and that's where Emax comes in once again. But I got a little off topic there, I'm not going to lie, but it really comes back to this whole concept of absolute conservatism based on the final outcome. And so when we're designing a smile in particular, if somebody has a tooth that is worn off and we want to lengthen that tooth, we actually a lot of times don't even have to cut on the edge of that tooth because it's already been reduced on its own naturally. And so, this vision of these stubs, like cutting your tooth down to a stub, it most of the time, disclaimer, it is sometimes absolutely necessary to do that. When somebody's had a crown already, or they need a crown, or there's a tooth that's malpositioned and the patient wasn't willing to do orthodontics to move it into a better position before doing the crowns or veneers, sometimes it's just necessary. It's just one of those things. But most of the time, the vast majority of the time, we can be incredibly conservative. We're talking tenths of a millimeter of reduction of tooth structure, which is almost nothing. Okay, and so what that leads to is very little post-operative sensitivity. Okay, it's starting to rain right now as I'm out here, so we'll see. I'll go maybe another 30 seconds to a minute or so, and then sign off. But so just when you're thinking about it, whether it's with me, whether it's with another dentist, if you're considering cosmetic dentistry and you've built it up in your mind, or you've heard horror stories from somebody else about their teeth being cut down to nubbins, or you've had an experience yourself where you've had a tooth or teeth cut down to nubbins or really aggressively prepared, just know that modern adhesive and materials in dentistry make it so that that's not necessary anymore. It's just not necessary. So I hope you found this video interesting, and please, if you did, please feel free to comment, like, share. This is something that comes up a lot when I'm talking to patients. They always want to know, are you going to have to cut my teeth down? Are you gonna have to hack them off or saw them off, are some of the things that people say. So as the raindrops start to fall, I'm gonna sign off. Y'all take care. I'll see you next time.